Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I am joined by first-time guest Lucas Seibert. Lucas, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? How you doing?
It's great. It's great to have a Lucas on a show hosted by a Luke. It's kind of a cool little thing there. You are a 4-year WVU wrestling participant. You started for a couple of years, and you just graduated. So what's it been like being a college graduate for all of a couple months?
It's been pretty awesome. I've just been transitioning right into MMA, so I haven't had to take too much of a jump of like not practicing or anything. And then just working here and there, getting some side jobs. I work for Wrestling Mindset full time, but getting some other side jobs. So the transition out of college is going pretty well.
And speaking of that transition out of college, your transition to MMA is just a couple weeks away, July 9th, 247 Brawl in the Berg 12 at the Meadows Casino. You're making your debut at a catch weight of 133, which was also your wrestling in college weight. So very exciting there. You mentioned that you work full-time in a wrestling coaching capacity.
Yeah, it's actually like a sports psychology thing. So like I have kids from all across the country. I coach a little bit for my local high school at Westerville North, and then also for Adam DeSabato Wrestling Club, out here in Columbus. But yeah, I'm all over.
Well, you said the sports psychology, is that just wrestling, or is that more of your day job dealing with just any athletic performance?
So it's just wrestling. Actually, it's a company called Wrestling Mindset. I work for like they'll give me an athlete. I have some in Florida. I have one in Texas actually, and I do like a call once a week with them, and we go through like a curriculum, make sure they're kind of mentally where they want to be.
Well, that is really cool. Was your undergrad that you just completed in psychology, or is this something new?
Yeah, it was actually in sports psychology, so sports specific psychology. It's one of the WVU is one of the few schools in the country that offers it, but it's pretty cool. I like it a lot, actually.
Well, that is not only a very unique degree, but also it's great that you found a company which actually does exactly what your degree prepared
Yeah.
you to do. That's pretty rare. That's a fun thing there for sure. Well, you started training MMA at Immortal MMA, which is run by Matt Brown and Mark Coleman, UFC legends. But you started training it about 3 years ago. So what was it like? Let's break down a little bit. What was it like training components of MMA that involves BJJ, that involves being comfortable off your back with submissions that are illegal in wrestling? What was it like training both jiu-jitsu, who has elements of grappling, but also breaks a lot of wrestling rules, while you're still competing at the highest D1 level in wrestling?
It was honestly like it was a lot of fun. As far as like athletically and wrestling and stuff, like I'm pretty creative. I like to do fun stuff, like fun moves, stuff like that. So jiu-jitsu kind of gave me like a little bit more of a play, even with my wrestling, where I could kind of adapt some of each things. I wouldn't say I'm a traditional wrestler by any means, or I wouldn't say I'm a traditional jiu-jitsu practitioner by any means either. So I kind of have the ability to like be creative.
Well, in that creativity, later, once you were already learning BJJ and you were in the wrestling room, what was that like? Would your brain go for, okay, I could do a Kimura here, but I can't. I could do a Americana or a key lock here, but I can't. I could do a guillotine here, but I can't. Or would you just lock into wrestling and it just flow in your wrestling moves? Or were you constantly kind of switching mentally back and forth?
No, I'd lock into wrestling, especially during wrestling season and stuff. But there's stuff that you can take from it. Like obviously, if you get like a front headlock stuff, I think for the most part is probably like practical stuff.
Yeah.
I like in my BJJ, I do a lot of darces. It's typically what I do. So you kind of get in similar positions and kind of learn how to score from with wrestling. From there, it was unique. And then once I got to compete in BJJ, like it worked a lot easier. The transition was a lot more smooth because I had a little bit of experience in it.
Sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You're obviously very cerebral in your approach. That front control, snap down, sprawl, headlock, whatever you consider it, is a really big position in both wrestling and MMA. We've seen Tony Ferguson actually hit Darce's from standing. He has a couple famous ones where he set up Darce work in as part of kickboxing, and then he took it to the ground. Have you watched the Tony Ferguson sort of Darce setup from standing as opposed to just the headlock, or am I not? Is that not connected?
I don't know particularly exactly which one you're talking about. I mean, Tony Ferguson has a lot of Darce.
Yeah.
He's probably like 5 in the UFC, which is incredible to get the same move in the UFC repetitively, especially a move that isn't really that common, I guess, submission wise. But yeah, Tony Ferguson's, I love how, I mean, he takes his creativity to a whole different level. But I love how creative he is in the octagon, even with his striking, with his, all that stuff. So, but I actually might go after this and try to find that standing Darce that you're talking about.
I'll send it to you. It was way back when they were hooked up with Fox, and they used to do a show called UFC on Fox. And Tony Ferguson was on as a guest, I believe, with DC, and he walked it through like a demo. It's really, really cool. I'm sure you'd pick up on it very quickly. And it was after one of his Darce finishes. One of the things that's cool is MMA is still, and BJJ for that matter, but MMA, it's older, but MMA is still new enough that some submissions are still being named after the people that do it. Probably the one that I kind of push is the Von Flue. I like to call the Von Prue, because Von Flue landed the Von Flue choke twice in the UFC, and Ovince St. Preux landed the same Von Flue choke 4 times. So I like to combine that because it really is that. Now, as we talk about something like the Von, what I like to call the Von Prue, as a wrestler in BJJ, how much work did you have in that classic people putting you in guillotines? You had to escape. If you get crossbody with them holding onto the guillotine, then you can do the Von Prue. Is that something you drilled a bunch? Because it does seem to kind of be that wrestling transition to MMA. You learn how to fight out of a guillotine and how to do the Von Prue. That way you're set up with the crossbody and the defense if they hold onto the neck.
Yeah. The Von Flue or the Von Prue, as you like.
You could call it the traditional name. That's fine.
It's a hard for guys built like me, like skinny. It's kind of a hard submission to get. It's kind of a like if you had, I think Ovince St. Preux is what, 205? He
was 205 in the UFC. I believe he might still be 205 outside, but he might have gone up to heavyweight. But yeah, you're talking about a bigger chest.
Kind of have a bigger frame to kind of get on. But threatening it is just good enough. You're gonna get out of the submission, but getting your body off to
that's the key. Yeah,
is really the most important thing. But yeah, I mean, guillotine for wrestlers, obviously everybody knows that. But I think I got past it pretty quick. I mean, I've been watching MMA and been a big fan of MMA, jiu-jitsu and stuff my whole life. So I was kind of hip to it. I knew what was gonna happen and stuff. It was more I was getting caught with a lot of triangles when I first started off. And I mean, obviously I've got past that now, but that was the one thing I was like, I can't figure out how to, like I said, I would get a takedown, get away from the guillotine, and then I would get triangled. But I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about, I mean, off and on every summer for like 3 years now. So this is the first time I've been able to like train consistently. So yeah.
Well, you bring up the triangle, and obviously that doesn't give anything away to your opponent. It's the leg triangle is a very basic. If you're in guard, if anybody's ever practiced off the back, you throw up the arm bar, you throw up the leg triangle. You might try to sit up and reach over for a Kimura, but that's basically go for it. Now, what I see as even being a better or more relevant triangle would be the arm triangle or side triangle choke, because you're used to having to work to the side and pin people flat on their back. You can pin somebody in MMA and the fight's not over, but if you get that side triangle choker, that arm triangle, that tends to be in the same position as a lot of wrestling. Did you pick that up quite a bit from that same dominant position?
So again, that one's kind of like a bigger guy submission.
Oh, really? I just keep bringing up the bigger guy submissions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's like you can kind of Coleman, I think Coleman's maybe first win in the UFC was with that position, but he did like a head crank, like kind of cool, like big brother, give him a nuggie thing. But he like head cranked him, and I think that's how he got his first win in the UFC. If not, it was one of his first. But yeah, that one's a lot of people are hip to it. That's kind of like, I mean, it's easy to kind of telegraph, but it's easier. I would probably work other stuff from there, but yeah, threatening any submission on top's gonna work, especially in MMA.
Well, as we transition from talking about the BJJ and the grappling, the wrestling component, of course, you're training with Mark Coleman, who's one of the original legends and original really champions and heroes in the UFC, and then a more modern, current UFC fighter with Matt Brown. But let's talk about the stand-up and the striking. Not to give anything away, but what was the most exciting strike to learn? Jab, hook, cross, uppercut, even your kicks, your knees, your elbows. What for you as a wrestler, having been limited by the wrestling rules, what did you just kind of blow your mind? Like, oh my goodness, I get to strike with this strike versus what the limitations are in wrestling.
So, I mean, I'm trying to think like move wise. I think just like learning just consistently, like little stuff. Like, I don't think any like one move's kind of going to blow my mind. Obviously I like to learn some spinning stuff, all the fun craziness, but I think like the little subtle stuff where I'll be like jab, like switching feet, and I'm like, oh my God, you're right there on that angle. I'll be with my coach and I'll be like, you just blew my mind, because like I didn't think if I switched here I'd be at an angle on the complete other side. Wrestling, you don't switch your feet ever, so that's kind of a no. So in MMA, again, I'm a creative guy, so like even in wrestling I would always try to switch my feet, and it didn't work. So MMA, you can do that a little bit. So,
well, I finally brought a UFC fighter to my mind that's at the 135-pound weight division. Only took me a few misses, but Dominic Cruz really pushed that switch the feet. He got so good at switching the feet, which I think in the striking, particularly the kicking element of Muay Thai, kickboxing, or MMA, to be able to land a kick and not have to withdraw it all the way back, be able to put it right down, or even miss with a kick, put it right down and be an opposite stance like you're talking about, really gives, and be able to continue to attack, really gives an advantage. We saw Dominic Cruz get so good at it at the WC and then the UFC that he ended up sort of dancing, in the sense that he would switch his feet without needing to even set up more stuff. Given the fact that you are creative and dynamic and like moving your feet, how much have you learned and watched sort of the highlight of Dominic Cruz era? And then obviously Cody Nolov picked it up as well, and a couple other guys, but that Dominic Cruz quick feet style, how much have you been watching and sort of learning and game planning from him?
So I've been a pretty big fan of every, like, I mean, I'm a student to the game. I've been studying it forever. TJ Dillashaw, one of my favorite fighters growing up. TJ, Dominic, Cody, all those guys at my weight kind of have like the non-traditional style, where they switch their feet a lot and stuff. But it's funny you mentioned Dominic Cruz. When COVID happened, when I actually started to get into MMA, he had like this free seminar thing, and it was like introduction to like Dominic Cruz footwork. And I like jumped on it, downloaded all of it before it like went non-free. And I like kind of like played with that a lot. So I switch my feet a lot. And I think it's just because like my base from learning striking at all came from that. So, I mean, that's a unique kind of thing, because anybody would tell you, don't try to fight like Dominic Cruz. Only Dominic Cruz can fight like Dominic Cruz. But I saw TJ and Cody Nolov beat Dominic Cruz at their own game. So I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I think it was Cody. I think it was Cody's fight for the title against Dominic, where he did very similar Dominic Cruz footwork and then pointed at Dominic Cruz. It's kind of
Yeah.
the sort of gave him a point and a salute. All those three guys made each other better. Obviously, there was a lot of animosity between Cody and Dillashaw, but it is really exciting to see that 135, and then of course with Triple C coming up to 135, that weight class has a lot to offer, not just at the UFC level, but at the amateur level. And I think it's always been good when a long time ago, you said you're a student of the game. I remember watching WC before it was bought out and made part of the UFC. But I think those lower weight classes, and you're in one of them, really have a lot to offer. And we've seen the biggest star of all time start at 145. And so we've seen the lighter weights really develop. I remember when Frankie Edgar was fighting at, and he was the 155-pound champ, because that was the lightest weight there is, and he couldn't go any lower. So it is really exciting to see that. Now, when we look to July 9th, you're going to be making your debut. You're a very talented wrestler. You train at an incredible gym with names that are just at the very top of the UFC, Hall of Famer and Mark Coleman. And so obviously you've got a lot of excitement. You've got a lot of hype. You've been busy on social media. What are you looking, and you're a mental prep guy, you're a sports psychology guy. So what are you looking for mentally in the transition between wrestling, which was a lot of pressure, one-on-one, a lot of similarities, to your first time ever actually competing in a real MMA fight where it's not sparring and you're not there to kind of work on your craft, but it's all for it. What are you looking out of yourself as far as the mental performance side?
So I am like a big, obviously I have a degree in sports exercise psychology, but I think the people that tend to do well, I think ignorance is bliss when it comes to sports. If you don't think about it, a lot of times you'll do really well. And then once you start thinking about it, you just overthink. For me, it's really just about going out and doing what I do in the gym every day. I think if I go out and perform the way I did at sparring yesterday, I'm gonna blow it away. So I think I'm all right. I train with some high level guys. I train, obviously my coaches with Coleman and Brown, but I train with the highest level amateurs and pros in the Midwest. So I think I'll be all right.
What did a famous guy once say? Confidence is when preparation meets opportunity. And that's where you are. You've prepared with the best of the best. You're obviously mentally and physically a student of the game. You flow very well. It sounds like. I've always liked that flow style, whether it's that more catch wrestling where it's chaining things together and not having to try to be in one position, but can kind of flow. And then also in striking. July 9th is going to be an incredible card. Your debut, a lot of debuts, some high-level pros, some high-level amateurs. 247 Fighting Championship puts on really great cards, and it's their first time at the Meadows. Would you like to make a prediction, or would you like to keep it basically just that as long as you perform the way that you did in your sparring yesterday, that you're going to blow people away? Would you like to actually make a prediction? That's your call and what you prefer.
I'm gonna stay away from the predictions, but I predict I'm gonna leave with a W, whether that be a knockout, submission, or a unanimous decision. I think it's going to be one of the three.
Well, like you said, if you go out there and you perform like you're capable of performing, which is obviously the whole goal, you're excited to be able to blow people away. I'm going to be K-Shot. I can't wait to call your fight and to actually kind of look at your footwork now that you mentioned some things. And it's always kind of cool for me. I tell people all the time, whether it's a highly touted, hyped amateur debut such as yourself, and you've got a lot of, which is a good thing, got a lot of eyes on you, you've got a lot of people already looking at you, a great camp behind you, already some things signed and some stuff in motion. You're represented by a great sports management team, and you got a lot going for you. Whether it's you or somebody literally from the couch that has no real, no big gym behind them. I always say as a commentator, your 0-0 versus 0-0 is literally watching people learn and develop their future style right then. And it's kind of exciting. And anybody that becomes a champion, they've had to start at an amateur or a low level and build up. So it's always exciting to see people that really will become the fighters of the future. Thanks so much for taking time out. You had mentioned that some of the things you're doing, you're obviously working, you're busy. I know you're selling merch, and I know you have a limited merch out there right now, limited edition called Sniper. Is that your nickname, or is that just for this first fight?
That's so with gear, it's kind of like got to come up with a nickname. I used to shoot from the outside all the time in wrestling, so that one it just kind of fit with it. So we'll see. I'm open for anything, but I like it. And yeah, that's available on I think the link's still on my Instagram. So there's that. They put like a WVU spin since this fight's so close to where I went to college. Put a little WVU spin on it with the Take Me Home shirts and all that stuff. So that stuff's all available. But yeah, man, as far as everything, Sucker Punch Entertainment, Sucker Punch is what represents me, what got this fight within 24 hours of me saying I wanted it. Obviously Immortal Martial Arts, Immortal Coffee. Those are my boys. They've been with me for the 3 years and hopefully throughout the whole fight camp, and Hammer House. So
it's been an honor and privilege having you on. Hopefully the first time of many in your amateur and a pro career to come. And so it's just super exciting to get to know you. Thanks for taking time out. Everybody that's local, which I think you're going to have a lot of local people, buy tickets directly from Lucas or people at the gym. You can also get pay-per-view or tickets from 247fighting.com. It's been a privilege and an honor having you on the show. Thanks so much. Lucas Seibert has been on MMA Fancast. See him live in action for his MMA debut at Brawl in the Berg 12, 247 Fighting Championships. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
You got it.